And I'm Guy. And this is your home for everything Alberta independence, broadcasting twice daily at 12 noon and 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, once on Saturday at 5 p.m. And we have interviews dispersed throughout the week.
But before we start, thank you so much for joining us today. Please don't forget to subscribe because it really does help us out. We try to read all your comments at the end of each segment. We might not get to all of them, but if you really, really want your comment read, we pause the whole show for super chats and read and discuss those as well.
Absolutely.
And I'll start saying hello to Glenn Gunn, who says good almost afternoon, now afternoon, good afternoon. Michael Drader says arrived on time. Thank you. Says we'll be hit 100 likes today. Let's go.
Well, and I will say it is a good afternoon because there are rumors swirling, and they have been for the last few days, but they seem to be gaining more credibility as Thursday and Saturday roll around. The rumors are Danielle Smith may be calling the question for the referendum on October 19th.
But as of now, it remains as Danielle Smith's Schrodinger's referendum, where we don't know if it'll happen or not.
I don't know what that means, but
you should. Michael Drader says nothing like doing deliveries with the wrong bloody address. Well, hopefully you can find it soon. And Pete says kind of like the census, Glenn. I'll get to that message in a bit. Teresa says made it just in time. Hi, everyone. Hi, and thank you for being here. And also thank you to everybody that watched Nicole Egan's interview last night with us. We were there in the chat. Very interesting conversation, both with Nicole Egan, but with all of you as well. If you haven't watched it, we talk all about Quebec and Alberta independence and how we can in a way, help each other to get to our goals. Michael Drader says, almost like Leduc County. And let me go back to everybody else. Glenn Gunn says, good day, sir. Good day. And says, return to sender because Michael Drader was losing his address or the address where he was supposed to go deliver packages. Todd says, discotheque doggies. Jay Smoke asks, Uniparty plan?
Yeah, well, what I say about the Uniparty plan is I think they want to push Poilievre out in order to get a Doug Ford or a Jason Kenney in. Jason Kenney's the big name, but Doug Ford's the secondary name they want to get in there so Mark Carney can kind of push, I think, federalization of natural resources, and that's what we're kind of seeing. We've been talking about that the last few days.
Mm-hmm. Glenn Gunn says, interested to see what Daniel's press conference will be tomorrow.
I think the whole world is, or at least the whole world as it lies within Alberta.
Mm-hmm. And I'm guessing Canada and the Western world should care a lot more than they currently do, but we'll continue to try to get that message out there. Glenn Gunn says Carney wants to join the EU. Yeah, and they continue to write articles and pretend like it's a great idea.
It's been going on for about 1.5 years, 2 years, maybe even 3 years, because it started actually under Trudeau. And he kept pitching it, but wasn't able to get really wheels under it. Carney has been able to do it. And I think he's trying to federalize natural resources. At the same time, he's trying to bring Canada closer and closer to the EU.
Glenn Gunn says bankrupt Canada, then bail it out. I don't think either of them can help each other much unless Mark is able to federalize all of Canada's natural resources and then use that money to get the EU to flourish again in a way.
Not the EU, actually. I would say it was the IMF will give Canada a bailout for its fiscal failings, and then Mark Carney will secure that with the natural resources of Canada, and that's how the globalists get control of all resources within Canada. And Canada has the most resources of any country in the world, except for maybe Russia, but they're really parallel with the amount of resources that they do have.
Todd says, Crapida is not joining the EU, Mark, you fruitcake. He is a fruitcake.
Well, we have to guarantee that by guaranteeing Alberta's independence. And I think that's why the press conference that's going down tomorrow will be so crucially important.
Yes. Todd also says Mark is a giant fruitcake, traitor to Crapida. And has left Crapida as it is. Wild Rose says, oh, hello. Thank you for being here. Jay Smoke says, Alberta, strong and free and independent. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Todd says, we were done pouring before noon, so I had to crack a beer before noon today. Sorry, guys. That's okay. Oh, and Teresa says, enjoy the freedom. Enjoy the freedom, too, but said, enjoy the interview very much. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
My words are getting caught up.
And it is Alberta, so you still have a little bit of freedom. If we gain independence, you'll be able to continue to crack a beer whenever you want. God knows what Canada is going to do. They keep just raising taxes on alcohol and everything else.
And hold on. Pete says, waiting for the new plates. They said July. What plates?
Maybe you order new dinner plates.
Pete says, subscribe to Nico. He has some great content. Yeah, and if you didn't subscribe to him, he's very interesting. So if you want, go subscribe to him as well after you watch the interview.
Well, yeah, and he's one of the few content creators within Quebec that's been speaking up on Alberta's behalf for a long time, and we need to raise both voices in both the in the eastern sector of Canada as well as the west, whether that's British Columbia, Alberta, or Saskatchewan, about independence.
And not only that, but he, similar to us, is not scared to point out the fact that a lot of, for example, conservative content creators really just do follow the party line.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jace Milk says, lol, Ford, never happened. Well, never say never. Again, they can manage to get everybody that they need to start promoting that as well.
Yeah, my hunch is possibly a Danielle Smith would be there, but I think they would go with a Doug Ford or Jason Kenney before. There would be a huge backlash, and then she would shuffle right into that position fairly easily. That's a little bit of a concern because we do need her in Alberta, whether it's to put the question forth on October 19th or just to build a good safety net for Alberta generally.
And now let's go into, was it breaking news?
Yeah, breaking news. I put quite a bit in breaking news today, actually.
Okay.
Extra, extra, read all about it. Extra, extra, read all about it.
And starting with, from Courtney Thoreau saying, quote, Alberta NDP leader Naheed Nenshi is claiming a sovereignty referendum will likely be greenlit this week. He points to a meeting for the Forever Canadian Committee being called for Wednesday, so today, adding the report suggests a primetime TV address that has been slated for Thursday.
And he's not the only one that are kind of swirling these rumors. Mitch Sylvester has given an interview on this as well as a few other really big figures. The rumor is that there's going to be an announcement Thursday. She's also called a UCP, or what do you call it? An
AGM. Alberta General Meeting?
Nope.
What is it?
It's when you have a Zoom call.
A Zoom call?
Yes, a Zoom call, not
an AGM? That's
No.
what it's called, isn't it?
Okay.
I don't know what you mean.
So she's called a virtual gathering of the UCP on Saturday. So I think it's going to be to address whatever she has on Thursday as well.
Says all indications point to Premier Danielle Smith proceeding with a separatist referendum this October, despite having no public mandate. This is Naheed Nenshi saying it.
Well,
no
number one, she has a public mandate on both sides, 400,000 signatures on Lukaszik's side, another over 300,000 signature on the Stay Free side. So she has more than a public mandate. She has a double public mandate here.
So Naheed says, no public mandate, no legal basis, and facing clear opposition from Alberta and some First Nations. The government has scheduled a meeting of the Forever Canadian Committee for Wednesday, May 20th, and the Premier has reportedly spent taxpayer money purchasing airtime for a province-wide TV address on Thursday, May 21st. Again, this is Naheed Nenshi saying it.
Well, no, it's not just Naheed Nenshi saying it. There's quite a few other people.
No, I know, but these words saying this is why they sound like this. Premier Smith wants to run a separatist referendum solely to save her political skin, says Naheed Nenshi, leader of the official opposition of Alberta. We've always known that she owes her job to the separatists. She thought she could control them. Now we know they control her. Again, that's him saying
Well, what she's trying to do is unify Alberta back together and make sure she consolidates power with a supermajority, which she seems to be doing under the UCP. If she holds this referendum and chooses democracy, she unifies both sectors together and they can move forward. Also, she gains a lot of respect from other people with independence movements in Saskatchewan, British Columbia, and other places. If she does ever step out of Alberta and go for a more national role, she's going to carry a lot of weight and respect because she did let democracy go forward when we see, well, the whole nation sees what Carney's doing with floor crossers and everything else.
Exactly. But also, and in a bit of a negative aspect, still touting the MOU she is. Rest of Alberta says, quote, the MOU should concern every Albertan. If Ottawa can force new costs onto Alberta oil just to let us move our own product to market, then the problem is bigger than one pipeline. The problem is Confederation itself.
Yeah, and this was very interesting. I think he had made this statement a little while ago, but I hadn't actually considered this. I didn't know all the ins and outs. I think Danielle Smith agreeing to a lot of what she's agreed with this new MOU is retroactive and goes backwards for a lot of oil that's already going out of the pipeline. And if that's the case, this is absolutely ridiculous. You're having to jump through hoops after the pipeline's already built and then continue to give more and more remittance payments and welfare payments to Ottawa, Quebec, and the rest of Canada.
So What I find concerning, and I think all Albertans should find it concerning, is that under the MOU, Alberta is agreeing to add between $5 to $15 cost to each barrel of oil, and not just new oil that would be developed and explored for and produced and go through a new pipeline to Pacific. All of the oil that we produce today, we're going to add an additional cost of $5 to $15 a barrel to it. That is economic stupidity, especially when the customer's not asking for it. So this MOU...
And this is absolutely crazy. I mean, you're making yourself less and less competitive, even with oil pipelines you already have up and running. This is crazy. I had no idea that it was going to be retroactive for pipelines and oil that was already going out, that should have had a secure price already sit on it.
I think it was well intended, but it shows that under Confederation, Alberta does not get a fair deal. Alberta does not have a voice. We have to beg for things. And even when we do beg and are given a little, Ottawa still is able to impose the costs of its ideological policies upon us to the detriment of our communities, to our families, to our neighbors.
Yeah, another issue here is you're having to jump through massive hoops and regulations before you want the deal, which you just jumped through. And then when they start building it, if they build it through BC or wherever they're going to build it through, they will completely stop it. So you have to jump through more hoops. And then after you're done, they want to make new MOUs on new pipelines, and they want that retroactively to apply to old oil, natural gas pipelines. At every single stop, this is going to put the oil industry out of business within Canada, or at least federalize it in a very quick fashion. This was a bad deal that she made.
And also, that's why I think it was important, and it continues to be important, to say no new pipelines until Alberta is independent, until the oil can actually be used for and in the way the citizens benefit the most from it.
Well, absolutely. If this is retroactive and now we're adding $5 to $15 per barrel, are we committed to that price once we gain our independence because these contracts are already signed? This is absolutely ridiculous.
I mean, I'm guessing anybody that's purchasing it wouldn't want to uphold that for Alberta.
Yeah, but you have to look at the oil pipelines where they go through the rest of Canada. There's not one single pipeline that goes from Alberta to the United States. So Canada
the one Trump wants to build.
There's nothing built right now. So Canada will be able to uphold any deals that Alberta made retroactively, I would assume. And this is absolutely ridiculous. Again, this idea of no contracts until an independence vote is more than fair. And if we fail to get independence, which I hope won't happen, and I don't think will happen, but if it does, that's fine. Then we'll go into these MOUs and these contracts going forward. Mm-hmm. But as of right now, I want the best deal possible, and the best deal possible is no contract until an independence vote.
Mm-hmm. And in that same vein, and also talking about the UCP, Mitch Sylvester once again continues to incentivize people to join the UCP. Mitch Sylvester says, quote, "Politics belongs to those who show up and participate on May 21st, 2026. There's 2 events coming up for the UCP. There's a notice of AGM in Fort Saskatchewan, Burgerville, and also in Lesser Slave Lake."
Yeah, absolutely. And leave this up here. This is very important. I said once we knew there was any meetings coming up, we needed to get the word out there. Mitch Sylvester's doing that. I'm going to do it on today's show, tonight's show, and for the rest of the week. So everybody knows, number one, to buy a UCP membership, and number two, show up to this thing. And if they do have a virtual meeting as well, if you can't make it, show up virtually if you can. We need to start applying pressure now. The word on the street is Danielle Smith is going to call the question on Thursday. And if that's the case, that shows she has a lot of backbone. She is a good leader, and she's going forward with democracy. But if she doesn't, this is our next option. Not me, the actual.
No, I know, but I thought you were going to make more. I usually make him full screen when he goes to make like longer points, or like to make it more pointed and more impactful. But
thank you, director.
Sometimes you just stop talking. And then it just looks awkward that I switched so quickly. I'm learning still. Okay, let's go to your comments, and then we'll go into Alberta politics.
Yeah.
My voice went really deep there. Pete says, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, Pete, because Todd, sorry. Pete says to Todd, it's at 5 o'clock somewhere. Pete says, new Alberta license plates, strong and free. Okay, got it. So swapping out my bike plate for sure. Got it. I thought plate like dinner plates, or like, I don't know, the Queen's Gold Jubilee.
Well, now
Diamond
it makes
Jubilee
sense.
ones. Yeah, now it makes sense. Teresa Freedom says, question for you. What would happen if Carney sells off federal assets. Alberta has a 12% interest in them. Can we do anything?
That's the big question. And I think that's why he's trying to use this 30 by 30 plan, as well as the Sovereign Wealth Fund, as well as a lot of other mechanisms. He's just putting into effect because he has a majority government now. Once they're in effect, they don't do much in phase one, but then he can layer other legislation and other legislation on top to start federalizing natural resources. And he also wants to try to indebt Canada, bring it closer to the EU, get international banks and the International Monetary Fund to bail Canada out, put the natural resources up against it once they're partially federalized. And that's how you see a lot of natural resources go bye-bye into the globalist pockets. And this is why we need independence now, so we can keep control of our natural resources and we can have that wealth for our children and our grandchildren going forward, and spent on basic infrastructure, not just basic infrastructure for Alberta.
Mm-hmm. Things that actually work and are for the citizens, not for other interests. Pete says he's already trying to sell airports and ports. Yeah, we reported on that one as well. Mm-hmm. So we're already seeing the mechanism start. Pete says, I've been trying to tell people pathways will go on everything. And even the pathways lady, one of them that helped bring it into or birth it into existence, said that it was a bad idea right now.
Absolutely. I mean,
we played that clip too.
I'm just shocked. I mean, we do this live show twice a day. Every day I'm saying they're going to federalize natural resources. I point out the mechanisms they're going to use. It's obvious that's what Carney's doing. Even the Liberals now are saying he's moving towards natural resource development, but he has to do it in a slow way, because if he does it too quick and the money actually comes in, the provinces won't give up that federalization. Mm-hmm. That's why he needs a year and a half to 2 years to actually start a lot of these projects. By then, a lot of the mechanisms will be put into place, and the only person willing to fund it at that point isn't going to be private industry, because there's so many taxes and regulations put on it. It's going to be the federal government.
Mm-hmm. Teresa Freedom says that increase starts January 1st, so Carney starts getting more money from us, and we still don't have a confirmed pipeline yet.
There's nothing there.
Pipelines to nowhere.
What do you got? You got a pipeline that has no backer on it. It's obvious to me, maybe not to everybody. The federal government's going to be the backer to that. That seems like more strings or more rope to kind of hang ourselves. We need independence. We need it now. If Danielle Smith comes out on Thursday and announces an October 19th referendum, the independence vote's going to get behind her securely, whichever way that vote goes. So
also, let us know if it's choppy, because I monitor the stream through my phone and I've been seeing it be choppy. But just let me know. Pete says the carbon tax is bad, but pathways is fruitcake Carney's industry kill shot. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily think it's an industry kill shot. What he wants to do is press the industry while he federalizes it, so he can get control. If it's a strong industry, if you have a strong natural resource sector within Canada for oil and natural gas, it's going to be almost impossible to federalize. But if he can weaken them to a severe degree, it's going to be easy to federalize at that point.
Glenn Gunn says, if not Danielle, then who? We kind of need her right now. If they table Tom's petition, then it's just a poll. She can't be that stupid.
We need her to put that question on the ballot. The second she refuses to put that question on the ballot, we need to make some other considerations. It seems like she's going to make the right decision. And if she does, I'm going to not only congratulate her, but heap praise on her, because that's all we really want is democracy to go forward. We don't need her to side with independence. A matter of fact, she has the best arguments as the opposition against independence as a federalist. Jason Kenney, Ninchi should be listening to her, because she makes the most reasonable arguments, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. And Pete says tomorrow is her talk with the Lukasics group. Decision next week, I predict. And it'll continue to be Daniel's Schrodinger's referendum.
Well, it's very interesting that, Wednesday is the day that she's supposed to meet with Lukasics group. Why is she meeting with that group? Obviously, she's using that question to get on the ballot. Or on the referendum. That's a little bit concerning, because I think it's a very weak question. She'll obviously have to redo the language so it meets the Clarity Act. But I think there possibly could be a challenge in court, just like they slammed the door on the first one. Maybe they slammed the door on that one. If they do, hopefully there's enough time for Danielle Smith just to stand up and say, well, I'm going to put the question on now, because there has been so many games played with the court system.
Mm-hmm. And Teresa Freedom says, the stream is nice and clear. Thank you for letting me know.
Thank you.
And Pete says, hey, Nat and Guy, what do you pay a month for high speed in Mexico? I was just doing the calculation to tell you in Canadian dollars. So we have, I think, because I checked yesterday because we were looking into it, we have 500 megabytes. Is that what internet is? 500 MBG or MG.
Yeah, megabytes.
Yeah. Upload and download speed, and it's $66.75 Canadian. $66.75 Canadian.
There's one speed that's faster than that, but it's not much faster and it costs a lot more. So we go with that one. It works for us. I also looked into Starlink just in case, because it can be kind of patchy when there's storms and stuff here. But it was actually 100 megabytes less upload download speed. So this works best for us.
Just download speed. The upload is way slower as well with Starlink. Yeah. Because I remember I looked into it too. Pete says she'll send them to the crying room. But I remember, how much did we used to pay for internet in Vancouver?
$75 just for a cell phone, which was absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, both our bills combined were somewhere like 180, 180 or something like that. Crazy. Hold on, where are we? Glenn Gunn says, my son's best friend is Ralph Klein's grandson.
Oh, fantastic.
Interesting. Glenn Gunn says, government won't do it. They got no money to be the backer for the pipeline, I'm guessing.
They'll get money from the International Monetary Fund or somewhere else, and that will leave them indebted to the International Monetary Fund, and then that will give control over Canada's resources. I guarantee you he's not planning to leave natural resources in the hands of the provinces at this point.
And Todd says, a pipeline to feed China and Russia so they can war on people? Okay, no thanks. That's what he said.
Yeah.
Glenn says, I thought Ralph's son would get into politics. He mentioned years ago he might, but never did.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Then again, I'm not all for just people's son taking over. It would be nice if he had like a YouTube channel or something where he would talk on a regular basis so you knew what his political views are. Just because somebody's the son of a previous politician doesn't mean they're going to be good. A matter of fact, even if it's a good politician, their son can come out bad. Mm-hmm. So I really want a little bit of transparency with politicians going forward. A lot of content creators and things like that, they can't lie about what they actually think on a long-term basis, because you can see over years if their opinions change and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now let's go into Alberta politics, and then we'll continue reading your comments.
He doesn't discuss federal politics. He only concerns himself with Alberta's independence.
Oh,
we're in Alberta politics or Stay Free Alberta?
Oh, sorry. Alberta Stay Free. Okay, I'll do the thing again. Let's go into Alberta Stay Free.
Free home Alberta, where the roots run deep and the money trees grow.
There we go. Now we're on the right one. Okay, starting with Brown Politics is Broken, asking, quote, is she governing for Albertans or for power? Many feel nothing has improved since Danielle Smith became premier, claiming to be libertarian, yet seeking authority, an oxymoron indeed.
Well, this is crazy. They want to call her libertarian like it's a bad word, just like far right was a bad word before. We want a big tent movement where it's conservatives, conservative populists, libertarians, a lot of different views in there. This is what modern conservatives has become. It's taken some of the best ideas from libertarianism, left the bad ones out, and have adopted those. And that's why it's becoming so popular on a global basis right now.
For me, I think she's trying to juggle not what's best for Albertans. She's trying to juggle how to stay in power. And what I don't think she realizes is that you can't do that indefinitely, right? Either your party's going to turn on you, the people who put you there.
Well, the thing is, she can't side with democracy, and she has, again, 400,000 on one side, 300,000 on the other side. All she has to do is say, we're putting this to a referendum. Both groups have asked for it. I know the one group is trying to say they haven't, but there's multiple videos of Lukasik saying he wants a referendum. The paperwork he filled out has a referendum, and the people that signed his petition have also said they requested a referendum as well. So you have 700,000 people. She's not between a rock and a hard place. She's in a very good spot to let democracy ride.
Are going to turn on you. You Albertans are going to turn on you, because the question that I put to Albertans like almost every day is, what have you seen improved since Danielle Smith was elected premier of this province? Nothing has improved for everyday Albertans on the day.
And everything has improved. Even though I can be critical of her at times, a lot of things have improved. Now, I would like to see much more improvement, but when she says woke is dead in Alberta, it's obviously not. We go through the systems and how it still exists, but she's starting to chip away at that. It's hard to chip away at that when she has a federal government working against her on a federal level with legislation and try to take sovereignty away from Alberta. That being said, she's doing the best she can with the position that she is in. If we get a free and independent Alberta, we can make major changes that are permanent, though.
Daily.
I just want to go back to referring to Danielle Smith as a libertarian. How do you feel that she's a libertarian at heart?
Well, that's what she's always said, right?
She's an oxymoron then. She's a libertarian who wants authority.
Exactly. For me, I think she's...
There's nothing wrong with, number one, with being a libertarian. This is how Trump was able to consolidate a big tent movement. That's number one. But number two, they're saying she's a libertarian that wants power. No, she's a libertarian, if she's even a libertarian, trying to fight federal power from taking the sovereignty away from Alberta the best she can. Now, she's not going to be able to do that because they have a majority government at this point, and that's why we need to take a hard turn towards independence, even if we do have a good leader at this point, like Danielle Smith.
But also people like that will always say that she hasn't done anything and that nothing she does works because it doesn't align with what they're expecting a leader to do. And I'm guessing if you were to ask people like that, what are they actually looking for in a leader, what they would answer would be someone way more authoritarian than Danielle Smith that can enforce things like rainbow alphabet flags and things like that, and pronouns.
What's the other option in Alberta? A Ninchi? Come on now. Or a Lukasik? Is somebody like that? That's a Lukasik or a Ninchi voter. That's absolutely ridiculous. There's a reason she's getting a supermajority right now. And it's not just because independence individuals are buying memberships in the UCP. It's because the NDP is hollowing out itself because they don't like their national leadership. They don't like their provincial leadership. And the older demographic that has been in the UCP for decades now, that originally joined because that was the party of unions and things like that, are starting to wake up and leave the party itself as well.
Sorry, I was trying... It's telling me it's choppy, but it's not. Okay. Speaking of Lukasik, Alberta Proud Dad says, quote, Michael Jans, this guy that wants to rename a street for the Forever Canadian people, has time to score cheap political points while Edmonton streets are dealing with open drug use, disorder, and safety concerns. This tells you everything about the priorities at City Hall.
Well, and we showed this the other day, that they're going to name a street after the Forever Canada. This is absolutely ridiculous. At the end of this clip, it's fantastic because they actually show the streets that this guy is a politician over and how he's failing.
As a commemoration of what this will look like, I hope very soon, I personally would love to come down for Canada Day and celebrate together on Forever Canadian Avenue. Wow.
This is how it looks like in downtown Edmonton, just a few blocks from city center.
Looks like Vancouver.
Stop renaming streets and start cleaning up streets. They need to get rid of these politicians in Calgary. That's going to be one of the first order. Edmonton. Well, it's Edmonton and Calgary. It's the two major cities. The NDP and this progressive ideology has a real foothold there, and they're voting in policies that just don't have a proper long-term vision for Alberta and what Alberta has to offer. And if it keeps going in this direction, Alberta becomes British Columbia, where the Vancouver demographic, there's such a mass of people there, they get to decide for the entire province.
Yes, the priorities is to rename a street because a kooky guy that wants to be Forever Canadian was crying enough about it. But John R. Bolton says, quote, lawyer Keith Wilson last November on who ultimately will decide on an independence referendum. He also comments on Lukasik's petition with a sly grin on his face.
Well, and this is important. Why? Because there's the press conference coming up tomorrow, and it's expected that she may use the Lukasik question and announce that for the referendum. And this is what Keith Wilson called almost a year ago.
There will be a referendum next year. The only party that can initiate a referendum, and it's always been the case, is the premier through her cabinet, the Alberta government. So at any time, it's not in dispute that the premier and her cabinet at a cabinet meeting can pass an order in council calling for there to be a province-wide referendum. They can set the nature of the question. However, there's an additional triggering mechanism to cause her government, Premier Smith's government, to potentially hold a referendum on independence, which is the citizen initiative process. But whoever goes through that pathway, whether it's Lukasik and the Forever Canada crew or the independence group through Alberta Prosperity Project, at the end of the day, what both of them do is cause the Premier and her cabinet to say, all right, are we holding a referendum? When are we holding it? And what is the question going to be? So Lukasik has effectively shortened the process and expedited the process for there to be a province-wide referendum on independence. Thank you very much, Thomas Lukasik. He did not think this through. It's quite remarkable.
Yeah.
And that's why I was tweeting about it extensively and
I know.
congratulating him and thanking him for, so.
And absolutely fantastic for him to call it almost a year ago. And the way she's going to use Lukasik's question, I'm hoping on Thursday, is put it in tandem with the stay free question and say there's two groups. There's obviously a question that only needs to be answered here, but we need to bring unity to Alberta, and we have to do that through democracy. And hopefully she stands up and she just uses her power as premier to put that on that referendum. She also needs to do a couple other things. If she uses Lukasik's question, she has to make sure it meets the Clarity Act. So she's going to have to reword it, number one. And we need her to kind of restate the fact that she's still committed on referendum day to count the independence question first. If that question is counted and people vote for independence, she's not going to count the other 9 questions because she doesn't want to muddy the waters. She already said that she was going to do that before. We kind of need her to restate that once she has made the decision for the referendum to go forward.
That would be an important thing to clarify as well. Teresa Freedom says, we'll go into your comments and then we'll go into Alberta politics. Now we'll go into Alberta politics. Teresa Freedom says, Lukasik is going to get 5 minutes to talk to the committee. He will be crying to get it rejected now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wish there was a camera in that meeting there.
Pete says, I'll email you a pic of our new plate guy, and I received them. I'll show them to you after.
Oh,
Thank
fantastic.
You. Says strong and free, and says sent. Yes, we got it. Pete says, make it your next screen. If I can get it, if I can find it in time, maybe. Pete says 500 up and 500 down, $66 in Mexico. Figures. Is that a lot? I mean, that's normal or a lot? I don't remember how much we used to have in Vancouver.
Yeah,
probably less.
I'm not sure.
Pete says Danielle got us that plate though with votes from the people. Pete says if Edmonton had a grasp on reality, they'd call the street Crack Street.
Yeah, things are going to we need a long-term strategy to really, for civic engagement amongst the citizens and education. I think it's really multi-generational here. So, but we also got to get a hold of immigration and things like that.
Pete says she can say one referendum with one constitutional question is economically responsible or fiscally responsible.
Yeah.
She could also say that. Harmony, hello, says weather isn't normal. I've observed the sky since I was a young child. Well, yesterday we had really crazy thunder here.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy here. And yeah, there's a lot of crazy things that go on with the weather in the United States and Canada. Not as much here in Mexico that I see.
Glenn Gunn says, me too, we get it, weather is like a box of chocolates. And Todd says, tell us $130 a month for junk service, monopoly style.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the problem with Canada.
Glenn Gunn says, Guy, you got that right, man.
Well, with a free and independent Alberta, and it's kind of already been stated by a lot of the decentralized leadership for independence that we want a no tariff policy with the United States so goods can come and go while we build our own industries. This is going to be a competitive market for the cell phone industry as well. I would expect internet connections and cell phones to drop through the floor. You would have U.S. prices instead of Canadian prices.
Harmony says, we must all do our part in making Alberta stronger and freer. 19th of October, 2026, referendum date, or sooner, Premier Smith. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm really hoping that Thursday she does announce this because this would be considered a quick announcement so people know which direction we're going. We're trying to find unity in Alberta, and I really do like Danielle Smith, so I don't like constantly having to say we're going to have to oust her if she doesn't put this question on the referendum. But it's just the nature of the beast. If she doesn't put the question on there, there has to be a consequence to it. So if she comes out on Thursday and announces this, I think you're going to have a lot of smiling faces.
Harmony says there's no other option than Danielle Smith as Premier of Alberta. Well, you were spitballing yesterday that maybe someone should come in if she doesn't put the question in or doesn't make a decision soon enough. Someone could come in.
I was
do that.
I was spitballing yesterday. There would have to be consequences for Danielle Smith not putting the question on the referendum. We would need a temporary candidate where if we did oust Danielle Smith, we can put them in, but wouldn't challenge the long-term viability of the UCP, but would take control of the UCP just to see the question forward to unify Alberta, whichever way that question went. The name that I put up was a Keith Wilson, but if it looks like Danielle Smith is very likely to put that question up on Thursday, so we don't have to worry about any of that.
But again, it's never bad to plan ahead,
Exactly.
as we've been saying.
Because we can't just say, you need to put this question on, and then she doesn't put the question on, and we do nothing. And then we wait another 6 months. She's not going to do anything different now than she's going to do in 6 months. She's kind of showing her hand if she doesn't put the question on.
And Luke Couture, thank you for being here, says, those who never got anything done are the first to accuse the doers of having done nothing. Go figure.
Yeah.
And that's what those two were saying. The ones that were saying, oh, but she's a libertarian. Okay, let's go into Alberta politics now, for real.
He doesn't discuss federal politics. He only concerns himself with Alberta's independence.
Now, I wonder if somebody's going to come up from inside the Lukaszuk organization and be a coordinated whistleblower saying we didn't actually get the signatures, we faked a lot of them. So they would actually have to recount every single ballot and make sure they had the minimum of 177,000, because I'm still suspicious they haven't. I hope that's not the case. I would see that being a counter move from Lukaszuk's side. That being said, that would lead to a prosecution to Lukaszuk. I don't think that's a big worry for the federal government. So they could have an anonymous whistleblower come forward, say something like that to trigger an investigation possibly.
But even then, I mean, it is now up to Danielle to put it on the ballot, on the referendum or not.
Well, absolutely.
So even if that happens, she can still say, oh, I'm letting democracy go forth.
Well, I'm just trying to think, what's the other side going to do at this point? Yeah.
And let's look at the other side. Naheed Nenshi says, quote, Danielle Smith is giving in to the separatists to save her own political skin. She thought she could control them, but in reality, they control her.
Well, and I will say
no, we don't. Otherwise, we would already have a question.
There is a ton of propaganda coming out from Nenshi, and it's high dollar propaganda. It's a lot of editing, a lot of graphics. This is not the only piece. There's been like 5 come out in the last 2 days alone. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of money going through the NDP to put this kind of stuff out.
Because they have nothing better to do.
Albertans don't want separatism. Albertans don't want a separatism referendum. Danielle Smith knows the public's not on her side, but she can't say the same about her party. So we know 2 things for sure. Number 1, the UCP is now a separatist party. And number 2, the Premier is giving in to the separatists to save her own political skin. She thought she could control them, but in reality, they control her. The Premier doesn't care about democracy. She doesn't care about the results of these referenda. She cares about her own political survival. And the only reason we are where we are is because she knows she'll lose her job as leader of the UCP and as Premier of Alberta if she doesn't pander to the people that got her there.
Isn't it sad he has to read
Albertans
all
don't
that?
want...
Like, it's not coming from the heart. He clearly was having to read leader of the UCP. Like, he forgot.
It's a lot of money as involved in that. He can't even memorize it. He's literally flipping the pages in front of you of the script. Yeah.
The narrative.
His hair was nice. He straightened out his hair at least. He was
nothing
crazy
about
before.
that man is nice. He's a frog.
But I will say something else.
He's a toad.
She's obviously in favor of democracy, and it's really hard for him to pitch this, because if she wasn't in favor of democracy and she was a pure separatist, she would have just put the stay free question on there point blank without having to do runarounds and make sure that democracy does go forward so both sides are heard here.
Yes. But of course, they have to mix and mince all the words they say, even when they're reading them off a page.
They just need to flood the zone with lies and misinformation so people are confused that are non-politically active at this point. And that's what he's trying to do. And that's why they want high value ads going out so people can actually bear to listen to the guy, to sit through it with the music, the color grading, and everything else.
Because they can only rely on the lemmings that still believe at least some of their lies, and those are the only ones that they can rely on anymore, especially within Alberta, where now more people, as Marty Up North was telling us during his interview, watch independent media rather than the mainstream stuff. So now he has to come out and say it as he reads the script. But Jason Levine says, quote, I bet the Liberals want to find a way to remove community notes, seeing how they are a propagandist organization, they must hate the tool. This is because Table of Salt says, quote, breaking the Canadian government has been community noted again. Public Safety Canada says, quote, all G7 Five Eye partners and most EU countries have lawful access frameworks that include technical obligations for electronic service providers regarding to Bill C-22 and how they're saying that it's going to keep Canadians safe. And readers added context, saying the EU Court of Justice has ruled twice that general and indiscriminate mandatory data retention by service providers is unlawful, meaning most EU countries lack equivalent frameworks to Bill C-22's metadata retention requirement.
The EU hasn't
and yet the EU is insane too.
The EU hasn't even gone this far as Bill C-22, and there's a series of other bills going to come behind this thing. Mm-hmm. Canada will be the most censored country in the world at some point, and why is the EU even not this far along? Because they're already captured as a block of countries. They want to bring Canada closer to them, and they're going to have to build some narratives that will be absolutely blown apart if free speech is allowed to be had. I was watching Jason Levine this morning, and he was saying, I wouldn't be surprised if a Democrat gets into power in the United States and they try to say the Canadian government's the only one that can fact check and things like this. Not just the Canadian government, but wherever the news comes from, that government will have a say whether it's true or false. And that is seriously dangerous at that point.
And again, it's just infuriating that they do it so blatantly, saying Bill C-22, an act to keep Canadians safe, and again, using and relying on that safety and safe word just so they can continue to push control upon their citizens.
Well, if Alberta gets its independence, we can absolutely break their globalist narrative, and Carney is leading this thing. He is at the absolute forefront. But if Alberta is prosperous and free and doesn't keep putting up more and more bars under the guise of health and safety, and we actually go towards freedom and independence, and it's a successful model, it blows the door off of Canada and what they've been doing, this hoax they've been propagating on their citizens for decades now.
Mm-hmm. But now we'll go into your comments and then into Alberta personalities. Pete says, anyone who wants out of an independent Alberta can be replaced by disaffected conservatives across Canada that will want in.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's who we're going to appeal to. As soon as this question's on the ballot again, you notice one of the big talking points I've taken off the table for a few weeks now is we need conservatives across Canada to step up. Instead of using the United States as the safety net, go to Alberta, vote for independence, and then you use the US or Mexico as that safety net if independence doesn't go our way. Once that question is firmly on there again, you better believe I'm going to be kind of putting the call out for national conservatives to come to Alberta to vote for freedom, independence, and to save Western values.
Pete says, Nenchi's irresponsible running of Calgary, $100 million in one shot to repair our water mains.
Nenchi's an absolute joke. Everybody knows it at this point. What he's hoping for is he can appeal to national conservatives and pitch Danielle as a traitor, but nobody's believing it at this point. She's going forward with democracy, and she's taking a firm stance that she's a federalist. So much so, she's making the best arguments for the federalist camp. Well, Nenchi and Jason Kenney flail around like a dying frog.
Glenn Gunn says, I'm sure Nenchi will finally come out as a Furby. You mean Furby, like those things from the 90s that used to go like this?
He does kind of look like that, but he's got his new hair now.
Creepy. Okay. Luke Couture says, all those who are against all those who are against Alberta independence are free to move to any other soon-to-be communist region without having to immigrate.
Well, true. Yeah, I would say if you're against Alberta independence or Quebec independence as well, for that matter, you can move anywhere else in the country. You're still going to have your citizenship. Albertans don't want to be part of a communist government, and that's why we want to break free at this point.
Yeah, you can have all your satisfy your commie needs anywhere else in Canada.
Well, I mean, and to this point, people that still want to be part of Canada really don't like the direction Danielle Smith has been taking Alberta. There's plenty of other provinces that are far more progressive, far more liberal, and destroying themselves at a far faster rate. All of them will welcome you.
Harmony says, one of my mentors passed away, and he even tried to give Naheed honest information, but he did not want to listen.
Yeah.
Why would he? There's not an honest bone in his body, and those bones are big. Glenn Gunn says that would split the vote, and then she would get in.
Well, exactly. And we talked about this yesterday and why we didn't want to split the vote. And if we had to oust Danielle Smith, we don't just attempt to oust her because we own 60% of the UCP and then start an independence party, because that would split the vote and allow Nenshi in. If we ousted her, we would have to have a compromised candidate that would be a temporary candidate in order to get an independence vote on a referendum in quick succession, and then step down after that was accomplished, whatever way the vote went.
Troglodyte says, hello, Troglodyte says, feet to the fire time for Danielle Smith.
And I don't think it's as much feet to the fire as we think. She's very lucky that she has had the 400,000 on one side, the 300,000 on the other. It's a simple decision for her. She just says, I'm letting democracy go forward, and we're going to unify Alberta, whether that's a independent Alberta or whether it's a federalist Alberta, but the people will decide it.
Mm-hmm. Hold on. Glenn Gunn says, get lost, Furby, you screwed Canada. Calgary.
I'm surprised he's still in power. And I think part of the reason he is still in power is because he's going so hard against Danielle Smith and this independence movement. They want to keep him in there because there was a lot of rumors that there was a female going to replace him within the NDP at one point.
Edward said, hello, Edward says, Nenshi has a rug now. Like a literal rug, or what kind of rug? Troglodyte says, and then she looks like the spawn of Chernobyl. Yes.
He kind of looks like
he looks like a failed experiment of some sort.
He looks like a fat Abu, the little monkey from Aladdin.
He most looks, in my opinion, like a toad. Luke Couture says, Premier Smith is respecting democracy by moving forward with allowing Albertans to vote in the October referendum. The NDP will come to an end on October 20th.
Yeah, and this is the thing. The NDP is fearful because she's saying, I'm letting democracy go forward. They were expecting to get half the voters from the UCP, the Federalist half, or expecting the independence vote to kind of break off. If she's able to keep that coalition together simply by letting democracy play itself out, the UCP is going to be absolutely crushed here. They are already getting crushed because every time Nenshi opens his mouth, more and more people are leaving the NDP.
And hold on. Over at RUMBLE, KP4U says, I think Danielle is at her end. If she doesn't call a referendum in time, it's time to axe her. Enough dragging feet. There is no excuses for her anymore. Call the referendum. LOL. And KP4U says, I got it. We fired Danielle. We guilt-tripped Keith into taking her spot because Alberta and his grandchildren need it. And after we pass the referendum, King Keith can take his rightful place. LOL. We do allow floor crossers in our democracy. Why not this?
Okay, let's just calm down here for a minute. There is a big rumor coming out Thursday, and then another big opportunity on Saturday for Danielle Smith to actually call this question. I prefer Danielle Smith to actually just take the road of democracy, do the right thing, and not only allow Albertans to decide the future, but really keep the party unified. This is the best path forward for Alberta as a whole. Then again, if it comes down to having to go against Danielle Smith, we do need a plan. Mm-hmm. But I really think she's going to make the right decision.
Glenn Gunn says, Nenshi and his Speedo during that Pride Parade. Ew. Pizza's gross.
What? Maybe I didn't know about this. I'm glad I didn't see that one.
I hope it didn't actually happen and it was just something somebody
maybe
said.
AI or something.
Yes.
I couldn't see Nenshi being that brazen.
Troglodyte says, go east, commies, and Pete says, get a canoe and move to Manitoba. And that's kind of what Nick Lagan was saying about the U.S., that yes, in the U.S., you can go to a state that either wants or doesn't want to, or you have that freedom. In Canada, it's all communist, and Alberta is the only one that wants to be able to separate. Anybody that wants that, just go live somewhere else.
Nenshi with his Speedo and a dog collar with a Kazakh bringing him around.
Okay, nobody needs that image. Edward says, Nenshi has a toupee equals rug. I didn't know that's what
that's a toupee.
People call them. Okay, let's go into Alberta Personalities, and then I'll keep reading your comments.
But they need to understand that Albertans are done, we're leaving, and there's no more conversation to be had. I know that's upsetting to people.
Starting with the elevated report saying, quote, as many of you have properly highlighted, I'm out of my mind. Now let me completely send you off the deep end. If Polyev really wants it, he could make history starting this summer. We're still going at it.
This is ridiculous. And I actually like the guy overall, and he does a lot of favors for independence by pointing out the direction of the federal government. But the fact that they're still on this Pierre Poilievre train when Carney has a majority government, he's not going to lose it for another 3 years. It looks like more people are stepping down within the Conservative caucus as well, which puts them in a bad position. It's time to get on the Alberta independence train, and once this question is called on October 19th, I fully expect content creators like this and national conservatives to get behind Alberta independence, because the Conservatives can't enact change for at least 3 years. We can enact it within less than 12 months, and we can do it at a level Conservatives never dreamed of.
Not for at least 3 years, for at least generations to actually revert everything that has been done in Canada.
But let's listen.
But it says the key is demoralization must end, cause the emperor has no clothes, hope must win. Hope is Alberta being independent.
There's more of a chance that Alberta can get its independence, Saskatchewan gets its independence, Quebec gets its independence, and then Canada as a whole turns Conservatives, because the vote seat, there's a switch in it that turns Canada Conservatives, than this plan here.
If Poilievre wants, he could rewrite the story. I'll tell you what I mean. If Poilievre wants to take control, I know Poilievre has it in his being right now. He has a burn in his being that he's going to fight. He said it plenty of times. He's going to fight, and I know it's as deep in his soul he wants to.
I'm sorry. It kind of sounded like he said he has a burn in his peeing. Like he's peeing in a
No,
burn.
in his being.
I know, but it sounded...
And I will say this. I like Poilievre for the leader of Canada, if that could ever happen. I just think he kind of messed up his moment. He didn't take off the gloves when he needed to. He went to do international interviews after a day late and a dollar short, when he should have been doing it during the campaign. It's a shame that he's not going to be leader of Canada. But even if he was leader of Canada, Alberta still does need its independence, because we need to enact change at a level I don't think Conservatives can at this point.
To fight. The issue is he does have some people around him that are a little risk averse. And I think it's time for Poilievre to start telling them what's up, because the moment is right there. Poilievre could make history, because that's all the talk is about, right? Poilievre had this amazing lead in the polls and then just crashed and burned and lost an election. That's all the rhetoric's been. But he could flip the script. Mark Carney, we know, based on what we're seeing, we're looking at the data points and the different signals around the hill and around media and some of the things he brought forward, that he's trending to become less and less popular. If that's going to happen, he manufactures majority.
It doesn't matter how unpopular he is. He's got a majority government for the next freaking 3 years. Let's see what real change is. And when Danielle Smith puts that question on that October 19th referendum, I fully expect these people to finally wake up and say, yeah, we need a change.
Some might not. I will
Well,
say
no,
that.
they're already, most of them are already leaning that way. Even he's reported on it more. So I wouldn't say they're kind of waking up. No, they've already started to lean in that direction before the question is even on the referendum. Once it's actually on the referendum, that's a reality. And that's when I expect a lot of youth vote, especially young males, to kind of come around and start supporting independence at that point.
We're going to see more MPs leaving this summer. Wilkinson's vacating. Nate Erskine-Smith's vacating. Guilbeault rumored to vacate potentially. We're going to have more by-elections in those ridings. If the messaging sets right, if they target properly and are able to mobilize Canadians one more time, history could be made. Poilievre could legitimately force Carney to be the first prime minister to gain a majority through floor crossing, and then also lose that majority. He could potentially do it. Get people fired up, get people hopeful again, and then highlight all the things that are going on. Not just highlight the issues that are happening with Carney, but highlight why people should vote for Poilievre and give him another chance.
And pause it for a quick second. And again, he's trying to name these liberals that are going to step down. He had two names, and then the third name was Guilbeault, who's probably not going to step down. But what happened today, you actually have a conservative announcing that he's stepping down. So it's actually opposite than the narrative he's trying to build. This is just too much cope for me. I can't do it anymore with Poilievre. I'm sorry. It's going to be 3 years. And by that time, Canada is going to be in absolute ruins. Natural resources are going to be federalized. And on top of that, the mechanisms, once Mark Carney puts them in place for federalization of natural resources, even if Poilievre gets in there, he's going to access those natural resources, but I believe he would federalize them as well at that point.
You can mobilize them on something emotional and get the people going. You could be the first guy in history to take away a majority government, send people to the polls, and go win. you really wanted it, that opportunity is on your doorstep. I sound crazy. I get it. The guy's falling off a cliff, dude. He's falling off a cliff. USMCA, Kuzma, it's going to get worse. America's going to continue applying pressure on Mark Carney. It's there if you want it. It's not going to be like, this is not going to be a good summer.
Okay, and I will say this. He is right about one thing. He is falling off a cliff. Things are getting worse. The USMCA is going to come up, and that's going to be another nail in his coffin. But all this doesn't actually benefit Poilievre because he already lost that majority government. This benefits Alberta independence, Saskatchewan independence, and Quebec independence. It's going to help all three movements at the same time.
Really just kind of want to give him a hug and say, man, it's over. It's over.
It's over.
Like, stop trying, unfortunately. It's sad, but it's true.
Mm-hmm.
And the faster they realize, the faster they can actually do something or support Alberta independence or move elsewhere or do something different.
Well,
instead of just keep betting on that horse that just won't win.
Well, and they didn't have a backup plan. They didn't have anything.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't plan ahead. Meaning when Poilievre lost the election, they didn't foresee all these floor crossers and they didn't try to prevent it or anything else. All their chips were put on that election and they lost. And the problem is with Alberta independence, we have a backup plan. That backup plan is ousting Danielle Smith if she doesn't put that question on that October 19th ballot. We have multiple backup plans and contingency plans for October 19th. So the Conservatives should have done that on a national level. And it's just a shame where Canada is today. I would have loved to see Poilievre as the leader of Canada. I still would love to see him the leader of Canada, but either which way, Alberta still needs its independence.
But now we're going to your comments and then into Alberta's Canada, which gets more and more dire with each day that passes, meaning Canada. Pete says, speaking of Nenshi, he manscapes. I would love to know how you know that, Pete, and when you would want to share that information.
Well, wasn't Pete the one talking about the Speedo as well?
Charlotte says, TMI, Pete. Yeah, too much information, Pete. Charlotte says he's got a passion in his pants and he knows it. Because I said it sounded like he said it has a burning in his pee. Pete says, better yet, first prime minister to break up the country. That'll end up being his title.
Yeah.
Soon enough. Glenn Gunn says that spineless idiot Stevie will never give up his paycheck. I'm more on your side than hoping that they'll change, but who knows? Maybe he will. Pete says Pierre lost it on Joe Rogan. Never happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's when we started fully. I've been calling him out for a long time, but that's when you kind of
we had an older video where I put makeup on Pierre Poilievre after that Joe Rogan interview for the thumbnail, and then I literally just shredded him for that interview. That was the last kind of straw for me. I've kind of softened up here, like, yeah, we're going to go for independence no matter what, and Alberta's going to get its independence, and if Poilievre wants to run Canada, I'm okay with that. And there's a possibility maybe there. The best possibility for him to actually get power would be for Alberta to separate, then Quebec to separate, and there to be a seat shift that would lead way to a Conservative Canada, and then maybe Poilievre could get in.
I'm less...
No, I don't say that's going to happen.
I'm not softened on him at all.
That's the most likely path to victory, is for actually Alberta to separate along with Quebec.
Yes, but again, I lost hope in Pierre Poilievre a long time ago, and there's been too many disappointments with him, even from the time he almost got in. And we made that video 4 years ago saying, you should go on independent media. You should start talking to other people. Go talk to Billboard Quiz. Go talk to people that have actual issues you can run on. And he decided not to.
Yeah.
So since then, I've been not so soft on him. Troglodyte says, time to abandon the Conservative Party mirage. That's all it is. It's a mirage. And again, the Conservative Party didn't want Alice Brody and her opinions, and yet they started taking them all in British Columbia. They didn't want, and they went against Max Bernier, and yet he's still the only politician that has continuously tried to tell the truth and support causes that actually mean something to him instead of just saying things.
If the Conservative Party wants to survive, because so many Canadians are fleeing Canada right now, 250,000 a year, even more this year, because they see the majority government and they know there's no hope. If they want to save conservatism, they're going to have to rebuild it in a new vision. I think Danielle Smith, through the UCP, possibly somehow is going to have to do something, because I think people have lost hope in national conservatism. The polls keep dropping, not because the Liberals are getting more popular, but because Conservatives are fleeing the country in mass.
I agree with Nico Lagan and with Fergus Hodgson. They both said Canadian politics is weak
Dust.
and it's spineless, and there's no courage there anymore.
No.
Everybody's spineless.
Well, even to let democracy play itself out in Alberta by Danielle Smith, that's taking a lot of balls and backbone if that's the direction she goes. So she's going to get a lot of credibility within Canada amongst conservatives and amongst independents as well.
Sean says, give the man an apple. No, he deserves no more apples. He's had enough chances. Pierre Poilievre, PP. Pete says, like Nico said, if Quebec goes, Liberals lose 44 seats. Yeah. And I'm guessing that's also why they're even more scared of that, I think, than of Alberta.
Yeah.
And that's why they don't want the two movements rising up at the same time and giving each other help.
Well, and this is why the immigration issue is so powerful, especially in Quebec, but it's just as powerful in Alberta. Albertans are just a lot more scared to talk about it right now. And let's go to
I thought you were going to continue talking. Hold on. KPVU says, floor crossers in our democracy. Why not this? LOL. Oh, no. I already read that one. Sorry. Okay. Luke Couture says, Canada will still need a good prime minister no matter what Canada may look like after Alberta or others leave Confederation if they want to survive beyond third world status. Trade is important.
Yeah, and I would definitely agree with that. And I will say, like, if Alberta gets its independence, Quebec is very likely behind them, and that turns the seat count conservative. I don't mind, once Alberta's independent, to see either a Pierre Poilievre or a Danielle Smith as the leaders of the Conservative Party in Canada, or a Dallas Brody, but they've already kicked her out of their party because she had her first principles were too strong for them, and now they've adopted her first principles. But those are three candidates I would love to see run Canada.
Sean says, I guess Carney purposely antagonizing Trump by not committing to its defense obligations and will buy the Saab fighter jet over the F-35.
God knows what Carney's doing here. I mean, he's obviously running to Winnie the Pooh's arms at this point. There's no other way to put it. The way he's destroying the U.S. relationship, we have to make it very clear to Albertans, do you want this isn't about second world powers uniting to make a third world power. These second world powers are collapsing in real time, and they're going to have to pick who their daddy is. Do they want China? Do they want the United States? Do they want Western values, or do they want communism? Canada's obviously made its choice, and it's financially destroying itself right now, and it's going to pick Winnie the Pooh and communism. Well, Alberta should pick Western values, Christianity, and the United States. At least that's my hope, and that's part of what we're actually voting on. When I say picking the United States, it's for the value system, not to be the 51st state or something like that. We want to be our own independent nation because we've voted conservative for the last 93 years. We can have a consistent vision for the future.
Pete says an independent Alberta could have an excellent relationship with Pierre as Prime Minister of Canada.
Absolutely.
And that's true too.
And that's another reason we need to hope Canada the best once we get our independence. And I really don't mind to see Danielle Smith go over there and run Canada for us. We would have a good relationship with her at that point. I mean, honestly, at that point, we would have the best relationship with Danielle Smith because everybody would love her that she let democracy go forward. And then her being the Prime Minister of Canada would be absolutely fantastic.
She could get a win-win in that sense.
Oh man, she'd be the Queen of Canada at that point.
Sean says he is destroying the relationship for political convenience and short-term, back to Mark Carney, I'm guessing, and for short-term convenience too. Trolladite says, many lefties say their party left them behind. I feel that way about the Conservative Party of Canada. And many do as well.
Yeah.
I'm there with you. KPVU says, wouldn't it be a crisis in Ottawa if Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Quebec were separating in the same month? LOL.
Yeah, but Alberta needs to do it now. It can't put off the vote anymore. I know on the interview we did, they said, yeah, it would be a very powerful moment for both Quebec and Alberta to have the referendum on the same day, and there would be a lot of advantages to that. But Alberta has a huge advantage having this first movers advantage. They got the federal government on the back foot. We have a critical mass of individuals that haven't left the province yet. We have Trump kind of already stating he would recognize Alberta as a country. We don't want to lose any of that by delaying any further.
No. And speaking of the failure that is Canada, let's go to Alberta's Canada. And we call it that way because Alberta is the only thing
But I will say
one
other thing, and that is if some other monkey wrench is kind of thrown in here, the PQ said the first opportunity they have, if they are elected, that they're going to hold a referendum. And if we have some kind of delay, having the referendum on the exact same date as Quebec is the next best thing to October 19th. But we're going to lose a lot of advantages for that.
Okay, Alberta's Canada.
I'm angry. I've had enough of these people.
Starting with, we were talking about this. Jason Pugh says, quote, another one jumping ship, conservatively, he's very happy about it. Another conservative leader, PP's chief of staff, Ian Todd, is quitting the Conservative Party.
Poilievre's chief of staff has announced he's retiring. Ian Todd says he will no longer be the Conservative leader's right hand at the end of this parliamentary session. Todd took on the role in September 2022. In a letter to his colleagues, he says, after more than 50 years in frontline political service to the Conservative movement, the timing feels right. Todd says he remains fully committed to Poilievre, and he looks forward to the day he is Prime Minister. Surging energy, Poilievre's chief of staff.
And this is another thing. Like, everybody's watching Carney at this point. So if he has more floor crossers, he's going to get a lot of heat. If he can just make backroom deals and get people to step down, that's another big win for him. That might be a new strategy. Mm-hmm. So, and especially because he knows he has candidates stepping down. If he can get an equal or more amount to step down on the other side, that's a big advantage for him.
And while we see Daniel Smith, at least, jumping up and down about the MOU and the pipeline and all the new deals that have been done with Canada that will one day materialize, apparently, allegedly, with Mark Carney, we see at the same time David Eby, whatever his name is, in British Columbia trying to do the exact opposite. And the British Columbia could be and will be that wrench that will stop any progress with what Carney continues to promise to Alberta.
And I disagree a little bit, but let's read the message here.
Scott Robertson says, quote, David Eby saying, the message I have for the Prime Minister is a pretty straightforward one. British Columbia backs Canada, and we need Ottawa to back British Columbia. We just need to see that same level of support that Alberta has seen from the Prime Minister right here in British Columbia, meaning none or almost none, but okay.
Okay, and what I was going to say here is David Eby is a climate zealot traditionally, but all of a sudden he's starting to shift the starting to shift the direction and say we want to access our natural resources as well, but he wants to sign these long-term MOUs that are going to take years to get out of the ground. Why? Because I think he's working in conjunction with Carney to federalize natural resources, and you're going to see a lot more liberals starting to come around to the same way of thinking and start pitching natural resources, and they want the same deal Alberta has, but they don't want it to start for at least another year and a half or 2 years. By that time, all the mechanisms will be built in for the federal government to kind of own a lot of the profits from it.
The message I have for the Prime Minister is a pretty straightforward one. British Columbia backs Canada, and we need Ottawa to back British Columbia. We have $88 billion in projects, 34 different major projects, 40% of the projects at the Major Projects Office, real projects with proponents and routes and ready to go. And we have the British Columbians who are getting trained to be able to take the jobs these projects create through $250 million in new funding for training. So that this puts more money in British Columbians' pockets by creating jobs and opportunity. It puts more money in Canadians' pockets across the country by lifting the national GDP. We just need to see that same level of support that Alberta has seen from the Prime Minister right here in British Columbia. The message I have for the Prime Minister is
holy hell, he sounds like Daniel Smith there, doesn't he? And why is that? Again, I believe he's working with Carney to federalize natural resources. You're going to see a lot of other prime ministers do the exact same thing. BC is absolutely flush with natural resources, and he's going to need to set a precedent to sign a lot of those natural resources over to the federal government at some point, or buy into a lot of these scams like the Sovereign Wealth Fund, but through natural resources. That's going to be the next step. And I think he's going to go to BC first, and especially the BC mining industry.
Speaking of the next step, from RMC86 says, quote, $1 trillion to double the electricity grid by 2050, $1 trillion for investment in Canada by 2030, $1 trillion of investment in the US by 2030, double the non-US exports by 2035, $25 billion for 500,000 homes per year by 2030, $150 billion increased military spending by 2035, $25 billion of debt for a sovereign wealth fund. Big promises, accountability far in the future. Where's all this money coming from?
Canada is hollowing itself out with its manufacturing industries. Where does he get all this money? There's only one place, and that is natural resources. And it's not provincial natural resource development. It's federal natural resource, not only development, but he has to get complete control of it. That's how he pays for this. It's as plain as day.
Because socialism and communism are great until they start running out of other people's money.
Canada will double its electricity generation over the course of the next 2 decades. core objective of that budget is to unleash $1 trillion of investment in Canada over the next 5 years.
And we are the largest foreign investor in the United States. $500 billion in the last 5 years alone, probably $8 trillion in the next 5 years. That's why we're providing $25 billion in financing to scale up that industry.
Carney's campaign pledge to build nearly 500,000 homes annually so far isn't adding up.
Our goal for Canada is to double our non-U.S. exports over the course of the next decade.
5% of its gross domestic product on defense by 2035. Carney says that this will come at a cost of $150 billion per year by the time we get there.
The Canada Strong Fund, Canada's first national sovereign wealth fund. We will begin with an initial endowment of $25 billion. Over time, the fund will grow through asset recycling and reinvestment. And if you have a bit of extra money, we'll make it easy for you to invest in the fund to help build Canada Strong.
And that's one of the key components is the sovereign wealth fund on how he's going to take control of natural resources. And that's how he's going to pay for all that. And if you don't realize that now, you need to wake up, especially if you're voting in Alberta, because you need to keep control of the natural resources in Alberta so it benefits your children, your grandchildren, yourself, and you can build the infrastructure needed to bring not only Alberta, but bring that vision of Alberta to reality.
Pete says, we'll have to see, Glenn. Depends. We're going to your messages and then we'll go into Alberta and the world. The guy has disappeared. Pete says, we'll have to see, Glenn. Depends on what she does in the next few weeks. And says, in principle, I agree, but hold on, where are we? Teresa Freedom says, we will not get a second chance because Carney will make sure of that. And that is what I'm also scared of and why I continue to say it should be done in October and there should be no more excuses either. And let's stop it being Schrodinger's referendum. Pete says, most unfortunate name in politics. Who? David Eby? Maybe. Pete says, can't you see CBC referring to the stuffer, I guess I have to say. Pete says, Eby gets projects because he only blocks Alberta. They have no oil. Well, BC has more oil than I think people think.
BC doesn't have a ton of oil. They have a bit off the coast, but their mining sector is absolutely insane.
And forestry.
If they would access it, they can't access it because of the amount of regulation on top of them. But done but not only by the federal government, but the BC government itself.
Pete says, as Guy points out, BC has gas and mining, but the world's biggest want right now is oil, oil, and oil. True.
Yeah, but I'm going to tell you this about Alberta, and you have to realize that oil prices can go up and down. Yeah, the world wants it right now. It gives you a good base to go into the mining industry if you get independence, because you can completely deregulate. You have access to the Rocky Mountains there. You're going to have... when you do that mining, there's a lot of extra material, so you can build concrete facilities, other manufacturing facilities as well. You have all the resources from mining to oil, so you can manufacture everything you need within Alberta. Typically, the federal government put a lot of the manufacturing on the East Coast, and now you can build a lot of those industries from ground right to finished product in Alberta itself. It's going to be a booming and budding economy.
Pete says, sorry, Mark, if I have a bit of extra money, it goes to the APP. And Sean says, could you imagine investing in the Canadian government? You have to be a special kind of stupid to do that, especially as an individual.
Well, this is the thing. He's probably going to do some kind of forced investment through the CPP, and then he's going to crash that fund. He's going to crash it or run it into the ground and then tell everybody, well, we're going to federalize oil, natural gas, and mining, and we're going to put all that money into the sovereign wealth fund so everybody gets rich. And that's how he gets a lot of retirees and voters that have their retirement in the CPP to vote for federalization of natural resources. This is the scheme.
So be ready. Glenn Gunn says, if we don't get a vote in the fall, then it will be 2028. Let Danielle win in 2027. Maybe a choice to consider to build more support, to play the long game.
There's no 2028. You're absolutely out of your mind if you think we're waiting to 2028. It's this year or nothing. And the problem is you have to have it this year because, they put in all those new regulations where you are going to have to wait to 2028. You can't do it on the same years as elections and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Glenn Gunn says, that man needs to retire. Outhouse is taking his job. And says, could have been named the POOP Shack. Troglodyte says, stop lying, EB, then you'd be silent.
Yeah, you can't play the long game with this thing because you have all the advantages now. The longer they're able to draw this out, every single advantage you have is taken off of the table. So even if you are able to vote for independence, there might come the point if you wait for 2028, Carney says, no, we're not recognizing you. You can't separate. And then there's no other country there to recognize to recognize Alberta as a sovereign and independent country. Right now, you have the United States. It's one of the big reasons you can't play the long game. You have to play you have to play the board as it stands now.
Pete says BC needs to join Alberta, then we have everything. I'm going there next week and I'll tell everyone and hopefully not get beat up. Please don't, but again, I wouldn't fully doubt it either coming from there. Sean says, how can you crash investments in oil and gas? It's not believable.
Yeah, you can crash investments in oil and natural gas by putting so much regulation on it. Nobody wants to invest in it.
It's too expensive to invest.
That's exactly what he's doing. And then he simply says, well, we'll be the investor. And because we're the federal government, we can give it a special exemption to take down the regulations just for us. And then we're going to put all that money into the Sovereign Wealth Fund. So everybody that put their CPP in there will now vote for the federalization of natural resources and taking sovereignty away from provinces.
And KP4U says, the only way, hold on, it's really small. KP4U says the only way we are doubling our power supply in the next 20 years is all the data centers that will be here by then.
Yeah, and data centers are really concerning. Data centers are pretty much worthless. There's not a lot of products coming out of data centers like AI. There's not a big profit to be made on AI compared to what's going into it. Why are they building these data centers and what do you need AI for? You need it for robotics. When robotics comes around, they need a brain. And that really starts taking everybody's job at that point. We're really funding the way to take everybody's job.
Maybe they can find you a brain.
If I only had a brain.
Now let's go into Alberta and the world. I'm kidding. I love you.
I have a brain. That's why I have you around. That's why I married you, Nat.
I am the brain. No, I'm not. Okay, let's go. Speaking of brains, Blade of the Sun says, quote, Google CEO, also liking one, tries to tell university students to love AI. They tell him to boo off. That is, this is what most people think of the hated AI. We don't want it.
And they're booing him on a graduation ceremony, which is absolutely crazy as well, but fantastic. People are waking up. These young students know there's not the jobs out there. A lot of these students are trying to find jobs just before graduation. They're realizing there are no prospects out there anymore. And a lot of it has to do with AI, especially they're taking a lot of these university graduates' jobs away.
Well, they were sold the lie, saying that if you got the degrees that would lead you to a job in the corporate world or somewhere where now AI is replacing you, you'd do better. And I'm guessing a lot of them are upset that they didn't take the other path that they probably did want to take that hasn't been taken over by AI, meaning trades jobs or jobs where you do things.
The problem with trades jobs is the government is suppressing wages with those through immigration as well. So you're, I guess, damned if you do, damned if you don't, either which way. But if you can get independence, you can slow immigration down to a snail's pace, which will increase wages within the trades.
Last December, Time magazine selected its Person of the Year for 2025. And this time, it was the architects of artificial intelligence. Interesting. It will touch every profession, every classroom, every hospital, every laboratory, every person, and every relationship you have. I know what many of you are feeling about that. I can hear you. There is a fear.
How stupid can you be to say that at a graduation? I mean,
we do not know the precise contours of what this transformation will look like. Choose a diversity of perspectives, including, let me add, and if you'd let me make this point, please. If you don't care about science, that's okay, because AI is going to touch everything else as well. Whatever path you choose, AI will become part of how work is done. If you have a problem in the world you want to solve, you can now assemble a team of AI agents to help you with the parts that you could never accomplish on your own. Let me give you some advice. First, find a way to say yes. And thank you very much and good night.
How retarded do you have
Couldn't
to
read
be?
the room. Should have went off of the script at some point. It kind of sounded like Trump when he was pitching the jibby jab.
Yeah.
He kept going to these rallies, kept pitching Operation Warp Speed and the jibby jab. He finally woke up and realized he was getting booed every single time. And then he brought RFK in, and he pivoted it, which was a good thing.
But these people don't know how to do that because they've invested way, way too much into their nonsense.
He
That
went back to corporate headquarters, said, we need more propaganda. Let's go to your camera here.
The dog's playing.
See what's going on. Have you
The
seen
dog's playing with the curtain.
The dog's behind the curtains. Every time we start filming now, she starts going behind the curtains.
Because she wants to go outside.
Okay.
But she can't right now. I'm not letting her out. Peter St. Ong says, so if you see curtains move, it's not a ghost. Peter St. Ong says, study finds more than 50% of immigrant households in America are on welfare, including legal immigrants. A rich country can cherry pick the top 1% of immigrants, 0.1% of immigrants. Instead, this is what we import.
A new study finds most immigrant households in America are on welfare, including legal migrants, which is weird because a rich country can cherry pick the top 0.1% of immigrants, the Elon Musks, Peter Thiels, Alexander Graham Bells, draining
and pause it for a second. And even once you got half the population of immigrants on welfare, what are the most likely jobs if they get off of welfare that them to go into? Low skilled trades jobs and things like that. So again, this suppresses wages for a lot of different industries.
Brains, talents, and capital of the world. Instead, we mostly import welfare cases. The numbers come from the Center for Immigration Statistics, who tally by country of origin, finding a low of 19% for Canadian immigrants, which is still too high. It should be 0. Then it escalates fast, hitting 1 in 3 Chinese immigrants, half of Colombians, 2/3 of Mexicans, and over 80% of Afghans, and of course, Somalis. Altogether, 47% of immigrant households use one or more of cash welfare, food stamps, Medicaid, Section 8 housing, which is nearly double the rate of natives. Not very cherry-picked. Gets worse because millions more take child tax credit, which is $2,200 per year, and earned income tax credit, EITC, which gives migrants up to $8,000 per year. Of course, for illegals, it's much worse. CIS estimates almost 2/3 access traditional welfare, and once they have the anchor baby or open a leering centers, it is off to the races. Summing it up, according to the Federation for American Immigration Reform, illegals alone are draining $150 billion a year, taking 6 times in welfare what they pay in taxes. So how did it get so bad? Before the 1960s, immigration to the U.S. was lean and the quality was high. We banned migrants likely to go on welfare, along with communists, and national quotas favored Northwest Europe. This all changed in the 1965 Hart-Celler Act, which abolished national origins, replaced with family reunification instead of skills. So instead of high-quality migrants, the system shifted to poor countries that have massive families get one in, the whole village is in. This combined with the 1960s welfare state, Lyndon B. Johnson's so-called Great Society, that created a $1 trillion magnet that drew in tens of millions of third worlders. So Hart-Celler opened the barn doors, welfare called the entire world to feast. Annual legal migration went from 200,000 to over 1 million. That's not counting illegals. America's foreign-born population went from 5% in 1969 to 1 in 5 today, 1 in 4 if you count illegals, who now make up 1/3 of welfare cases that were meant for poor Americans. So it's brought to you by the Bitcoin Way.
And again, we need to have hard immigration policies. Nat, what are you up to?
She was climbing on my chair. The dog is climbing on my chair. We need to have hard immigration policies. Continue. Don't get distracted. Just keep going.
Whoa there, Nat. Go into the questions if we can. You were distracting me.
No, but I had a point and you had a point on this too, so go.
I don't have any points.
Okay, my point is, in Canada, I'm guessing it's also either the same or even worse.
Oh, it's far worse.
Oh, I thought we were going to say something.
No. Well, it's far worse because Carney has adopted all those policies that he talked about, but in a much higher degree, whether it's the amount of money they're pushing out to immigrants, $84,000 a year or something, you can qualify. And they have people inside the government to help these immigrants get every single dollar that they can through these loopholes. It's absolutely insane. And then once one gets immigration, the entire village gets immigration. That's what Carney's new policies are at this point.
Mm-hmm. And specifically in Canada, but also in the United States, but in Canada, I think it's even been in a shorter amount of, in a shorter time span, it has the way that the immigration policies have changed themselves have changed the quality and the kind of immigrant that comes in. So when people, and especially when I hear older people try to defend immigration and say, no, but we get new cultures and new this and new that, they're thinking of when immigration used to be a lot stricter, and that in those times, yes, it was great to be able to meld and the people would come in and integrate, but bring some of their culture in, blah, blah, blah. But now it's completely different because, again, the whole village is coming in, and not just those that the country wanted to and needed to allow in.
Well, and they're not trying to have immigration for the long-term vision and security of their country. Immigration is meant to plug holes where you train your own people, your own youth, your own unemployed to do those jobs. It's meant to be a temporary stopgap. What happens, they're plugging the hole with immigration and then making the hole bigger to fit more immigrants into it, rather than ever training an actual citizen of the country.
Without looking into the infrastructure and the housing and everything else, which has led to more of the same crisis that was already there anyway.
Well, and then they think if they keep the immigrants there long enough, the statistics will fix themselves. What do I mean by that? You put immigrants in all these jobs, you make the hole bigger, you plug it with more immigrants. Eventually, those immigrants become citizens, and now you say, oh, citizens have the job. That's not how it's supposed to work. Let's go into comments.
Well, no.
We have one more.
Rothman says, quote, UK primary schools are teaching 7-year-olds that they're born with, quote unquote, white privilege. Indoctrinating infants with race guilt is pure child abuse dressed as anti-racism. Britain is lost. Yes, it is. GBN says primary school children told to be mindful of their, quote unquote, white privilege under education, quote unquote, anti-racism drive. And they're still going at it.
Yeah. Let's go into comments if we can.
Hold on. Pete says data centers, even in Canada, need not only electricity but water. There are a couple of spots in northern Alberta that could work, but Olds is a bad idea.
Actually, Canada is being earmarked for a lot of these data centers because of the cold weather. It's much cheaper for cooling because they can just pump in a lot of the outside air as well.
And Pete says our energy industry is world renowned. Who did Kuwait call to put out the Gulf War fire? Alberta. Hold on. Now I'm going to the other ones. Luke says Alberta independence is a must or Ottawa will drain it dry.
Absolutely. I think we all know that at this point. And it looks like Danielle Smith may be preparing to make the right decision here.
Charlotte says investor in the United States because Canadian businesses fled. Yeah, and they fled a while ago too. They want to pretend like they didn't, but yeah.
Well, it's going to be very interesting what happens on Thursday because she announces this and she says it's democracy because both sides will want this question answered. It's my job to unite Albertans, to bring them together, whatever result is of the vote. The Federalist side is going to absolutely demonize her. And when they do that, they lost their best asset because by far and away, I would say she's 100 times better at explaining the Federalist point of view than Ninchi or Jason Kenney. We were playing like for 3 days straight when she was making all the rounds. She was making great Federalist points. And before that point, I said, they have no points. Yeah. And then she made them. If they lose her because they demonize her, they're going to have nobody to replace her. So I would expect independence to become even more popular
and
at that
to
point.
give those talking points that could work.
Yes.
Glenn Gunn says BC has a huge natural gas reserve. True. And Glenn Gunn says those that donate to the Liberals are a special type of stupid. Yes, they are. Troglodyte says the Peace River area should join Alberta. It's a natural fit in BC. Glenn Gunn says, did you just ask me if I'm out of my mind? No. Cesario Cesare Roman says Premier Smith will have presentation tomorrow, possibly including an independent question for referendum on October 19th. Yes, we opened up with that one, but as of now, it still continues to be up in the air.
Yeah, but it looks like it's going to be the right decision, and this is going to benefit Alberta independence immensely. She's simply putting the question on there, but as I just said, she's the best proponent of federalism. If they demonize her because they're going to put that on there, and that's what they're preparing everything for right now, is to demonize Danielle Smith, they're going to lose their greatest asset, and the fact that they can't see that is absolutely crazy to me.
Troglodyte says, after construction, data centers hire very few, and the ones hired will be from India.
Yeah, and it's the same thing with these natural resource sectors. As you put in more regulations, more carbon taxes and things like that, it represses the wages of the actual workers on the pipelines and within the oil industry. And eventually they won't do the job anymore. So then you bring in immigrants, and now you have no benefit to this natural resource sector when it comes to your actual citizens.
Oh, Todd was asking if you said he was out of his mind, because Todd then says, oh, sorry, Glenn was asking if you said he was out of his mind, because Todd then said, I doubt Guy would direct that towards you. Lol, probably talking about Mark at that time.
No, it was just, I think somebody made a suggestion about something that I disagreed with.
No, I think you were talking about Mark Carney. I said,
okay.
he's out of his mind, or something like that. I'll go back and look into it. But yes, he meant no insult, I'm guessing.
No.
Todd says, between roughnecking, wrenching, and cement heading, there's lots of work to be done here in Alberta. Now we just have to make it so we can keep our money earned instead of giving it to Brookfield.
Absolutely. And wages go up once these regulations come off, period.
Troglodyte says...
Okay, I'll leave it there.
Troglodyte says they aren't immigrants, they are a voting bloc replacement population.
Yeah, and that's what I've been saying right from the beginning. A lot of people were saying they're meant to float GDP because that was the Liberal line. I always said they were a voting bloc replacement because at a certain point, even Liberals or people that are born in the country won't vote for these policies as they get too progressive. But you need a population that doesn't speak English well that you can propagandize and get them to vote for it.
Mm-hmm. Todd says, farm and ranch and pipeline construction to the States. Let's go. Luke Couture says, Alberta should eliminate birthrights, aka anchor babies.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, you have to be born to Alberta parents.
Yeah, you have to be born.
At least one.
You have to be a citizen of Alberta or born to an Albertan in order to be a citizen. Otherwise, I think there should be a different class of residency for those individuals.
Luke Couture says Canada is bringing in villagers, unskilled, uncultured people. Hold on.
Well, unskilled people. So they're going to take the jobs of the working class is what's going to end up happening.
And Pete says, stay free, Alberta. Yes. And hold on, lastly, Krista says, hello, dears, Alberta Independence, LFG, or let's effing go. Yes, let's go. And that's it.
And we're going to head over to RUMBLE. We got just a few stories, and they are too hot for YouTube today, definitely. Yes. So
30-second Waitscreen. We'll see you over there. Don't forget to subscribe before you head over to RUMBLE. And otherwise, we'll see you at 5 p.m. for the evening show.
Let's get ready to rumble!